Y is at the very end of a short word, it says I. When it's at the very end of a longer word, it usually says E. Short, I, long, E. Short words means that Y is the only vowel. Longer words means it's a multi-syllable word. It means that there are more than one vowels that don't touch. Okay? So if you see a word like buy, cry, try, shy, short words, you can tell that Y, you can tell it's short because that Y is the only vowel. Longer words, happy, candy, pretty, taffy, you can see that Y is not the only vowel. There's another vowel in that word that doesn't touch the Y that qualifies that word as longer or multi-syllable. And when Y is at the end of a multi-syllable word, it usually says E. Sometimes it can say I. So don't get tripped up if you see a word like multiply or satisfy or rely. Thank you, Lily. Sometimes a Y will say I at the end of a multi-syllable word also, but usually it's E. So in this lesson and in all of the lessons basically that we're going to be using Y at the end of, it's going to say E if it's at the end of a longer word. So you don't have to wonder if it's I or E in this class. It's always going to be E if you see it at the end of a multi-syllable word. All right. So let me share my screen and we can get practicing with our new knowledge. Oh wait, before, who knew that about Y? Did you, if you weren't in this class, because a lot of you have been in this class for a while, if you didn't know that before you got to this class, let me know. Yes, or yes, you knew that prior to taking this class, that Y is a vowel if it's not the first letter. Yes, you already knew that. No, you didn't. Most people are, no, you didn't know that. That just makes me giddy. Only a couple people are saying, yeah, I already knew that. Isn't that fun? I mean, I know that I love words, but I love sharing that important information with you so that you now have that knowledge, because Y is only a consonant if it's the first letter. So when we grew up in school, we were taught that Y says yeah, yeah, right? Yeah, no, it doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't say that. Only few words start with Y. Yes, yellow, yak, yonder. There's not so few words start with a Y. It's only a consonant, tiny fraction of the time. Y does not say yeah most of the time. Most of the time it's a vowel. Now you know. Y is a vowel if it's not the first letter, and it's not going to say yeah most of the time. And if you can hear my grandkids in the back, we gotta love them. We gotta love them. All right. Here we go. Let's practice some enunciation and reading these words. All right, so this I is going to say I because there's a vowel in the next one or two spots. This I will say I because the next two letters are consonants. Y at the end of a multi-syllable word usually says E. It is always going to say E in this class, but I'm going to when I repeat this rule for you, I'm going to say it like that. I'm going to say Y at the end of a multi-syllable word usually says E, so that your subconscious can begin to remember that it's a usually rule and it won't get totally tripped up if it's different. So here we have I, D, I, E. I dippy. I dippy. Okay, don't let an R come in right here. Make sure that it's not I drippy. Focus on the shape of your mouth. I dippy. All right, go ahead and try yours over here. I'll be quiet while you work. Okay, so this I is going to say I because there is a vowel in the next one or two spots. This I will say I because those next two letters are consonants. Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. So we have I, T, I, B, E. I, Tibby. I, Tibby. Yeah? So far, so good? All right, let's try number 2. Now here we have a Y at the end of a one-syllable word. You can tell it's a one-syllable word because there's only one vowel. Y is the only vowel. When that's the case, that Y says I. So that word is N, I, nigh. So what would your word be over here? Vi, right? This Y is at the end of a one-syllable word, so it says I. We have V, I, Vi. Yeah? If you have a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat for me that I can answer it for you and for everybody else. Okay, so let's try number 3. This I says I because there's a vowel in the next one or two spots. This I says I because the next two letters are consonants. And this I says I because the next two letters are consonants. And Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. Go ahead and just chant that when you go to sleep tonight. Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. That will just help it sink in a little more. If you can turn whatever you're trying to memorize into a chant, then it puts it into a different part of the brain and it gets memorized a lot easier. So we have I, S, I, S, T, I, N, E. I, Isistini. 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 Okay. Try yours over here. Okay. Okay. So this I says I because of the tap 2 rule. There's a vowel in the next one or two spots. That is why this I says I and this I says I because the next two letters are consonants, right? Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. So we have I, L, I, S, T, I, M, E. I'll. I'm going to go one letter at a time because this word is long and I want to make sure that I grab every single sound. I'll, eyelid, eyeless, eyelist, eyelist, eyelist eyelist eyelist. How did you do on eyelist Timmy? Did you get that one without me before I pronounced it with you? Did you get eyelist Timmy? Yes or almost? Y or A? All right, nice. Yes, but it was hard. Wow. Congratulations. Congratulations. Then let's do these next two kind of quickly if these are, isn't that wonderful that that was a little easy for you? Okay, almost. We're getting some almosts now in the chat. Okay, so this TH, here we have a digraph blend. This TH is a digraph that says th or th, but we're going to use its voiceless sound. And then this R says so we have th, Now what's this I going to say at the end of a one-syllable word? It will say I, right? So we have I, thry, thry. Okay, so what would yours say right here? Here's your Y at the end of a small word, a one-syllable word. I. Shry. That one's not super easy to pronounce because that R is kind of a difficult mouth shape to come right after an SH, but you can do it if you force it. Shry. Shry is the beginning of the word shrine. Shry without the N. All right, so now we are down here to our extra practice. Put which one of these in the chat that you'd like for me to do with you before I send you off on your own to try them. Okay, number 7 it is. Okay, so let's let's mark it first, and then I'm going to let you work it out. This I is going to say I. This I is going to say I. Here we have an I. Here we have an E. Take your time. Work through this word on your own. If you want to break it up, here's where you can do that. Take your time. Okay, now this looks like it says my, right? Doesn't it? M-Y? But that's only if it's by itself. And now you know why that says my, because Y at the end of a short word says I. But this is actually at the end of a longer word, so it's not going to say my, it's going to say me at the end there. Because Y at the end of a longer word says E, usually. So let's break this up into syllables. I is try, putting try on the shelf. We have is, nis, putting those two together. Tryness. Starting with the T. Tim. Putting these three parts together carefully. Tryness Tim. My mouth is in a long, wide grin shape for a lot of that word. Tryness Tim. Now we can start with the M and go to the end. Me. Trinistimi. Trinistimi. How did you do on that one? Y or A? Yes, you got it, or A, you almost got that one without me. Trinistimi. Look at you. Look at you guys. My goodness. Well done. And those almosts, those are gold. Almost is a solid A minus. Well done. Okay. I also had a request for number 8. So let's try number 8. I'm going to let you go ahead and try this one on your own also. You got it. You've got this. Go slow. I'll divide it if you want. Right here. Right here. And right here. Nice, Nicole. Go ahead and use my syllables just to confirm what you read is correct. Break them off and break them up into those smaller word parts just to make sure that it's correct, okay? All right, so this I is going to say I because of the tap 2 rule. Same with this I, same with this I. Each one of those I's has 2 consonants after it, which forces it to make its short sound, which is I. Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. Syllables. P, L, is, plis. S, I, sim, plissim, trip, trip, plissim, trip, p, plissim, trippy, plissim, trippy. Now I know you almost got that if you didn't get it all the way, but I want to know Y or A. After you, I'm able to read it so much easier. Yay. Yeah, the pli almost got me too. I almost said play right there, so you're not alone on that one. Okay, almost every single person was a A on this one. Almost every single person got this one, almost. But now that we can figure this one out, plissim trippy, you guys, the rest of these, you've got this, okay? You have got this. This C, by the way, is going to sound like an S because there's an I after it. Sifty, sifty, okay? But after we do these hard ones, the easy ones are going to seem so much easier. I am so excited that now you know that Y at the end of a short word says I. Y at the end of a longer word usually says E. Sometimes I, but usually E. Short word means Y is the only vowel. Longer word means Y has another vowel that doesn't touch it. Short I, long E. Welcome to I month. That's just the beginning of all the wonderful things we're going to learn about Y. It just gets me giddy. I love Y. All right, my friends, you're amazing. Have a wonderful night, being great, and we'll see you Wednesday. Bye, my friends.